All right, good day all. My name is Dr. Omari Dyson. Today's date is February 6th, 2021. First off, I want to apologize to you all for not getting this video out a little bit earlier this week. I got bombarded with a lot of grading, so thank you all for all your papers and videos that you've uploaded. I am going through those and grading those accordingly. Please to assist me in this process, please refer to the syllabus. I'm looking for 2 pages on your responses, not 1.5 pages, not 2 pages with the paragraphs with about 5 spaces between each paragraph. Please don't make this job and don't make this process harder than it needs to be. All right. So with that said, I just want to talk to you guys for a little bit, just to put some things in context, take a couple current events and put them into the, nested into the discussion that we're going to have briefly today. But before we begin, I want to take a moment of silence. I want us to just take some time just to think about our presence, where we are, be in the moment. Think about the people who've sacrificed themselves for us to be here, for the sacrifices we've made to be here. And also for the people that have had some trouble in life in just being able to survive and be fully human. All right. So what I want to do is, and let's kind of go back to a couple of your, well, I should say a couple, a good bit of your intros when we talked about defining what is conflict and conflict transformation, and to kind of think about what is entailed when we talk about conflict and, excuse me, conflict transformation. And I'm taking a piece of this that from James Baldwin's piece that I sent to you all, The Negro Child and His Self-Image. And there's a part where he says, you know, the paradox of education, in saying that the point where an individual is educated is the point that they're at war with society. Now, what does that mean exactly? Let's think about it like this. And I'm taking not only the piece from James Baldwin, but I'm taking some work from a philosopher by the name of Louis Althusser and his discussion on state apparatuses. And I'm taking a little bit of Antonio Gramsci's hegemony and probably some systems theory and systems approach to this discussion. So let me explain. And of course, a little piece from the Black Panther Party, coming from the theorist, Dr. Huey P. Newton. So I'm going to take a couple of these pieces and blend them together as we have this conversation. But when we think about education, true education, understand the root word of education is, Latin root is educare, all right, which means to bring out. Education implies that the talent, the skills, the knowledge is already embedded within the individual. But what we need to do is create an environment that allows that talent to emerge, right? But when we're in situations where people are suppressed, those talents are not able to manifest themselves. And that failure of knowledge being able to be brought out into the world, it turns inward and creates these inner demons, inner battles, and inner destruction, internal violence, if you will. So what happens when we have individuals that begin to understand more about the world, as we call, oh, and also Paulo Freire, conscienciazo, which is the raising of consciousness. When we begin to sit back and question the world around us, asking the questions, well, why is it that these people are treated differently from these people? Why is it that these people have more money than these people? Is it by chance? Is it just because people just work hard, they're just motivated? Or is it because of a legacy of privilege and prestige that's just been passed down to them, and they're just taking advantage of it? You guys have to be the ones to answer those questions. Now, as people begin to question the society's, to question society as it is, and begin to say we want to change it for the better, well, we run into some forms of resistance, all right? And this is where Baldwin came out and said, you're going to run into most fantastic forms of resistance, brutal acts of resistance. 5:30. These things can come in the form of prison. These can come in the form of killings, assassinations. You can't get a job, being ostracized. So there are so many different ways that you see this resistance come out. But one of the major places and spaces that the reduction or the lack of knowledge being able to be accrued happens within the education system. I'm using education, little e education, not large e education. Education as a form of control that relegates individuals to particular roles in society, all right? Let me give you an example. Asa Hilliard did he had a discussion on the taproot. And if anybody's interested in this, please email me and I can try to get you the recording of this. But he talked about how education has been used as a source of control, right, when it comes to domination, where people are relegated to 3 roles, all right, whether they be brass, iron, or gold. And these different levels of education speak to who we are now, where you have low, middle, and upper class, all right? And you can look at the exposure and experiences that you've had in education. How has this helped you to better yourself and also better the conditions of your community? If education is not helping to better yourself and the community, that means it's doing something else. And what is that else? For my people who are interested in rap and hip hop, check out the rap group Dead Prez. They have a song called Day Schools, all right? That is explicit lyrics, just in case if anybody has sensitive ears. But that song talks about this education that's not serving the needs of the people. Now, when we begin to use education in a way to transform the society, why is it society responds in the way that it does? Look at what's happened. Look at what happened last year, Black Lives Matter movement. Look at what happens across countries where people are protesting because of these acts and laws that are used to hinder them from being who they are. People are protesting, but then the system reacts to that and begins to cut them down in whatever way they can, whether it be in the media, using negative ways to say, oh, they're just protesters, they're mobs, they're this and that. I'm not saying January 6th, that was craziness. But it's all these other things that people are doing that that are causing these conflicts to emerge, and we're not transforming the world. So let me take a step back. Why is change so difficult in this country? And I asked this, I didn't ask it for this class, but in a couple previous classes, I asked the question. And this came from a statement made by Huey P. Newton in 1971, I believe. And he said that we need to, and actually he's not the only person, but John Brown was another person that I believe said this as well, is that we need to go to the root of Americanism and uproot that Americanism and change it, shift it for the better. Specifically, the Declaration of Independence needs to be rewritten in order to encompass all those that are in this society. Society is always changing. So because we have all these different identities and ethnicities, et cetera, each one of these individuals, I mean, of course, you're not saying 330 million people are going to sit down, but the stories, experiences of people across these identities need to be sitting at the table in order to create the Declaration of Independence, because this is what speaks to who we are. And when we know, and you'll see this in a future video that discussion you're going to have on what the founding fathers said about race, when you hear about what some of these founding fathers said about race, you'll sit back and say, specifically Black people and Latino people, you'll sit back and scratch your head and say, damn, I guess that's why we get treated the way we get treated, okay? When you look at America, and I remember this coming from Frances Cress Welsing's book on the ICE, called the ISIS Papers. She said America is an anagram. Anagram being I am race. I am race. Put those words together. If you guys do words with friends, you might find America and you can put those 3 words in there. I had a student challenge me about 2 years ago. She says, well, Dr. Dyson, why can't it be I am care? And I says, well, look here. It could be that. I didn't think about it. She hit me with something. And I says, well, you know what? You're right. Maybe we can have this country be about care if we took time to understand the experiences and histories of other people instead of denigrating those people. We could be I am care. But at this point, I am race. All right. And you need to figure out what that means and what your presence means in the society based on that statement. All right. Now, when it comes to making change, and this is a project that you guys are going to be doing in the future, when it comes to change, you have to know that change is not easy. There are people that are gatekeepers that are sitting back and they benefited from a particular system, and they will probably stop at nothing to give up their privilege. All right. John Henry Clark once said that. He said, look, if I was in power, I'm not going to be so willing to give up my power. Are you crazy? No. Okay, that doesn't happen like that. Power doesn't, people are not going to give up their power willingly. And so when you understand that, now you understand the resistance that you're going to experience when it comes to making change. Are you willing to put yourself out there to make that transformative change in order to not only for yourself to benefit, but for other people who are oppressed to benefit? That's what we're talking about here when it comes to transformation. All right, let me give you an example. Well, this is a long-running conversation, but it started to come out more about 2 years ago. And it was a very interesting conversation. Hopefully it doesn't offend anybody on here. I'm trying to keep you guys here, but we're in class, we got to learn. The conversation came up about reparations for chattel slavery. For those that don't know, it's not Africans who were taken from different parts of the west coast of Africa, came from various tribes, all right, and they were brought to the Western Hemisphere, all right, Brazil, the Caribbean, United States. Now, in that process specifically, they were worked for many, many years, from about 1526 to the last official documentation of slavery being in 1960-ish, all right? Yes, 1960-ish. Now, from that whole process, this whole country has been built, all right, off of slave labor, all right? It has been estimated that the amount of, and that's from passing down, and we're talking about Jim Crow, from chattel slavery to Jim Crow to other heinous acts that were linked to slavery, et cetera, incarceration, et cetera, that happened from then to now, that $14.5 trillion is owed to Black people or the descendants of African descendants of African people who were placed in chattel slavery. $14.5 trillion, all right, is owed. Now, that's a lot of money. I think it's a lot of money, all right? That is right below the national debt. So if you think about it, the United States, or when you look at that, when I sent you all the US debt clock, that US debt clock technically is how much money is owed to African people, Black people, African American people in this country based on slavery. Now, think about that. Now, when you sit back and look at the the areas where Black people in this country specifically are suffering: education, politics, economics, war, sex, religion. I mean, we can keep going on, media, entertainment, all these different inequities that exist, all right? The true conversation is, what are we gonna do to rectify that wrong that happened to those people? And as I argue, it's not only Black people that need to be healed from slavery, but white people need to be healed from slavery. Because for someone to put themselves or get to a level where they have to do such heinous acts to another person, all right, and you're not healed from that. I mean, I've never harmed, no, I don't, I've got into fights, all right, with somebody, and I felt bad about what happened after I, was in a fight with a person. It shakes you up. Now, just imagine if somebody were to kill somebody, or in some of the things that you might hear about in slavery. I don't even want to even get into that, but some of those documented treatments that happen, there has to be something that, happens to you as a person. That's like, that affects your psyche. What happens to that person if they're not healed, to say that we need to sit down and talk to you about the trauma that you inflicted on another person, just like we have to talk about the trauma that this person experienced? You have to heal both parties, and that's not what's happening. So because of that, that mindset has been passed down to the oppressor and the oppressed, and it's been passed down again and again and again. So when you see these interactions of how people are doing these things, it's linked to this mindset, it's linked to that experience. So when it comes to transforming, and we talk about all these conversations about racial equity and equity and inclusion and all these different, there's these conversations that are happening in these different places of employment. Do you really, really know what this means to be, to create an equitable and inclusive society and job? That's a lot of work. And I don't know how willing people are to do it. It's scary for me. I would love to see it happen, but it's one of those conversations that's like, I don't know. But I'm not going to sit back and be doom and gloom about this. There is some degree of hope, and you guys are the hope. It's now, how do we take this huge problem and cut it up into different pieces and begin to say, you know what, I'm going to address, I'll talk about me, I'm going to address this problem from the incarceration and education side of it. And I'm going to use this space and use this mind and my heart to begin to talk about how I can impact children who've been influenced by parental incarceration. That's my passion. That's what I want to do. Maybe your art and your will and your purpose is to look at it from a different angle, from the legal side of it. I don't know. But we have to be able to take this lion and break this lion down in order to defeat it. That fight, I remember one time in a blog, just to let you know how real this is, when that whole reparations conversation came out, somebody on a blog made a statement and said, if they get reparations, they won't live long enough to spend it. So now, that's some harsh words. So I challenged the man. I said, hey man, what do you mean by that? He never responded. So that shows you, wait a second, that mentality is there. Go back to January 6th. That mentality exists. So we have to understand, race is a very sensitive topic in this country. And if we're talking about transforming, how we view race, we understand that we have to understand that there's a legacy of violence that's associated with that. And there are some people that say, you know what, look, I'm done with it. I'm moving on. I'm not even worried about it. There's some people that say, I don't even want to research problems in the United States. I'll research problems someplace else, because they don't even want to look at this because of how ugly and dastardly this system has been to people. Let's face the reality. So anyway, what I want to leave you guys with is just knowing and understanding that when it comes to change, it's not something that's easy. something that you have to dedicate yourself to. Something that I dedicated myself to, whether it be from incarceration or dealing with childhood obesity. I've sacrificed my time, I've sacrificed my body, because I believed in these things, and I'm still believing these things, and I do whatever I need to do in order to make it to rectify these issues in the lives of children. That's my passion. It's come to the point where I've done these things and I've lost jobs. I can't get jobs. It's been one of those things that, but I believed in it so much that I was willing to give up everything in order to make a difference in the lives of people. That was my sacrifice. That was a dream that I had, was that I was going to sacrifice myself for children. So I do that. But I think that to the benefit, it has helped me to be where I am now, to be able to share this space with you all, and to be able to say that, maybe my words, maybe my experience is gonna uplift one of you all, that you all gonna say, I'm gonna take this torch and I'm gonna build this future for tomorrow. And we go from there. Oh, you know what? And there was something else I wanted to share with you all. Education. Email me if you want this article. But I was reading the Wall Street Journal today. This is just something to leave with. I don't know, if you want a discussion on this, we can open up a discussion on this one. But I just saw this on the Wall Street Journal this morning. Something that I was saying with a couple of my friends for like the last year and change. Schools or colleges, what did they say? Basically, specifically in the aspect of PhDs, all right, that schools have enrolled more students to attain degrees, specifically graduate or PhDs. They've enrolled more students and graduated more students than the industry needed. So the schools system, let's say they graduated 500 people with PhDs in philosophy, but the world or industry or academia only needs 250 people. That means that we have a net loss of 250 people who are now stuck, cannot find a job in their specific field. Now let's expand this out to the number of students that are getting degrees across all fields. All right, doesn't matter if it's in the hard sciences, the applied sciences, the humanities, I don't care. All right, but there's a disconnect that has happened between what's going on in the education system, because colleges need money, all right, to function. And so we bring students in. But in the process of us, in the process of us enrolling all these students, all right, we are also, there's a certain disconnect that's happening with what the industry actually needs. So now when we have a situation when we graduate you all, hopefully you all graduate, where are you all gonna go if the industry is not demanding that number of students? In addition to the fact that this time in society, we have 5 generations of people coexisting together at the same time, right? Let me see if I can get this right. The silent generation, the baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, and the millennials are all coexisting together. And you have a good bit of people who are baby boomers and silent generations that are still occupying positions as millennials are trying to get into these jobs. I think I'm considered Generation X, and there's tension. So anyway, if anybody is interested in that study or interested in that research, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you all. Anyway, it is Saturday. I don't want to take too much of your time. I wish you all the best. If you do have any questions, or if there's a discussion that you all are interested in, or it's a topic that you would like me to research and bring to the class, let me know, and we'll go from there. Also, if you have any interesting articles that you come across in our field or in our area, please send those out to me. I'd love to read those and learn a little bit more about topics that interest you. Again, I wish you all the best. I hope your families and your loved ones are all doing well. And I will see you all next time. Be well.